Hello and welcome, Mohammed. One sec. If you can listen me, please type on the chat. Okay, we have more people joining. Okay. All right. One sec. And we are starting. Okay. So we start. All right. So we have more people joining. Hello, everybody. My name is Ioannis Anifandakis. I have graduated from this scholarship and the A&D track on June 6th. And today it's my pleasure and honor to provide any possible help to you guys to help you proceed with your A&D Nanodegree so you get closer to the finish line on time. I'm really excited because those of you on Capstone 1 stage, at the moment you are actually so close to the finish line, and trust me, you have plenty of time to complete both your Capstone 1 and Capstone 2 projects, and well, you know, just graduate and hop to the Bragg Day channel and let everyone know of your achievement. Today, before any questions, I would like to provide some information so we can all get started and make sure we are on the same page. So I will ask you to stay here with me on the live stream. So I say a few things that might be useful regarding the approach to the Capstone project as a total, and then answer any questions if I'm able to do so. Also, I'd like to tell you that another good member of our nano degree, it's Hannah. Hannah will also join us in a while and answer any questions on the YouTube channel and on Slack. So you will mostly chat with her about that. I won't be seeing so much any questions, so I will mostly just talk, so it will be like a talk here, and if you have any questions I will answer them at the end if Hannah is unable to do so. Now, other than that, now, Capstone Project 1 and 2 is a free subject project that you will propose, which is the part 1. And once part 1 is accepted, you will need to implement it at part 2. So we have stage 1 and stage 2, which is Capstone 1 and Capstone 2. So given that Capstone 1 project technical documentation, you need to provide regarding your project proposal, while Capstone 2 is the actual code you need to develop based on your accepted Capstone 1 proposal. So you really need to be careful while you build your Capstone 1 proposal. So you make sure that you provide the documentation of a project that you can actually build on time. And given we have just 3 weeks, try to be on your Capstone 1 proposal. So take that into consideration and don't overdo it with specs. Now you obviously understand that the Capstone 1 does not include any code, and you might think that it's an easy project. To some extent it is, but it more definitely requires coding skills to a large extent. And that is because you cannot get technical if you're unable to understand the coding pitfalls. Be aware of the libraries you want to use and their limitations, and then imagine the actual code before you even write it. Then and only then will you be able to provide a structured and solid project proposal. And that is what the Capstone 1 is about. Capstone 1 is about providing a structured and solid Android technical documentation. Capstone 1 is not building a custom rubric like you're used to from previous project. Capstone 1 is the complete industry level project documentation that you need to define from scratch. It's the industry standard level documentation you need to define from scratch. This should be what you need to give to your developers as a project leader, and make sure that this document alone is enough to completely describe the implementation steps required to be taken so your project is built as you have imagined it. So, if we go into the official documentation of Capstone 1, go into the classroom and see the Capstone 1 description, I'm going to read it for you for a second, which will make things very clear. To become a proficient Android developer, you need to design apps and make plans for how to implement them. This will involve choices such as how you will store data, how you will display data to the user, and what functionality to include in the app. What will I learn? Through this project, you will demonstrate the ability to communicate an app idea formally using 1. App description, 2. UI flow mocks, similar to what you've seen in Nanodegree projects like the movies, and 3. A list of required tasks that you will complete to build the app in order for the Capstone project to give you the experience you need to own the full development of the app, so on, blah, blah, blah. So, as I said, and based on the technical documentation, your challenges are to describe an app efficiently, provide the mocks, and the required tasks to be taken in order for the app to be built. That's those 3 elements you need for your Capstone 1. So, where to start? Okay, let's get started. First, you need to come up with an idea. I bet you had 1,000 ideas about some very cool apps you might want to build. But now you might be possibly lost and your head might be empty. That is usually the case. You're not alone. So don't worry. If you cannot get the idea fast, ask your friends. Play a little bit on Google Play and some cool apps that you like, or start one that of the suggested apps you can find on Capstone 1 instructions page. There are some apps on Capstone 1 instructions page in case you are out of ideas. A good thing to know is that if you have an outdated old app on Google Play that you want to rewrite, this is possible. And you have no problems rewriting an existing app. So here, for those of little faith, I will put a link, and this link goes into the discussions into the forums of Udacity, that clarifies exactly that you can build an existing app if you want to. You can rebuild an existing app. Okay. Now, once you have your idea, then you should start thinking about how to implement it. Now we need to read both rubrics, both Capstone 1 and Capstone 2. Do not begin Capstone 1 writing before reading the Capstone 2 rubric. Why? Let's get into the Capstone 1 stage design rubric. Which is this. And this is Capstone 2 rubric. Why we need to read both rubrics before proceeding? The reason is simple. Your project is broken into two stages. The first being the project description, which is what this stream is about. And the second is actually the project development of your proposal. That bond is also reflected at the last requirement of Capstone 1 rubric, which clearly states that app design specification demonstrates implementing all features required on project 7, which is Capstone 2. And from now on, I will switch from camera into screen. So let me do this here into the screen share, and go into the rubric. Rubric, it's here. All right, so we are here on the rubric of Capstone 1. As you can see here on this rubric, the last requirement is what I earlier said. App design specification demonstrates implementing all features required for Project 7 Capstone 2, which is actually the rubric of Capstone 2. So in order to be efficient about Capstone 1, we need to go through all the rubrics of both Capstone 1 and Capstone 2. Now, let's go to my script. And okay. So we will start with the rubric. We have the rubric, and we also do have something else, which is called the template. All right. So we have one template that we are given, which will just fill with the information based on the rubric. So these two go hand by hand. Okay, so we will also see the template, um, which is where it is. I think I have opened it here. Yes. All right. So we go side by side with the template and the rubric. Some things first that you might think they're a mistake. Let's start with the first part here. The first part here, which is about the language. It says that the app should be written in Java programming language, and the app utilizes release version of all stable release version of all libraries. Okay, by reading that, you might think that, well, this must be here by mistake, because actually we're not building an application here. Well, in fact, this is not a mistake. This is something that you should have in your Capstone 1 as a statement. In other words, your Capstone 1 should indicate at the end that the app will be written solely in the Java programming language, and that your app will utilize libraries, stable libraries, Gradle and Android Studio. I'm going here into my Capstone 1, and you will see that what you need to do is at the end have some statements that they simply say that your app will be written in Java, and your app will utilize stable libraries, and so on. Okay, which is those statements. Now, in Capstone 2, you will also see that there is a requirement that strings and colors and stuff, all those fixed values should be in the equivalent XML file. And you also just need to have this as a statement. And that's pretty much it. You don't need to discover the wheel here. You will just need to write those statements, and you will meet this part of the requirements. So this is not something hard, okay? Now, it only can get confusing, but it's not hard for people who just don't know what this is about. Now, other than that, let's go into design and plan review, okay? Your proposal should contain an overview description, as it says here. Well, as you can see, we will now move into the template. The template will require you to one sec. This is not the template. Okay, here is a template. So the template says that you should put your app name here. You should put your GitHub username here as well. Then you should go into the description. The description could be something as simple as what your app is. A general description without extra super details and stuff. Okay, what this app does. This is an app which, for example, I will talk about my app. I built a news application, and for my news app, I just said that this is a news application providing local Greek news and so on and so forth. Okay, so what your app is about. So this is uh, the overview description. Doesn't have to be 10 words, but you don't have to make it 1,000 words either. Okay, it has to just describe what your app is about. Then we go into that part, which is proposal contains a description of the intended user. Okay, by going here, you see here intended user. Who is your intended user? For example, for my application, which was a news application, I said that my intended user is the average Cretan Greek reader. So it was a Greek application providing Greek news. So obviously, my intended user was people who were able to read Greek, obviously, okay? But it was also providing local news. So it was not just for the Greek reader, but my intended user was Cretans, people living in Crete or people who originate from Crete, as my app would provide news for the island of Crete, local news. Okay, so you say who your user is, the user who has what needs. If you're making a pharmacy application, it would be possibly your average user would be somebody looking for pharmacies, or somebody who is looking for some medicines and stuff, okay, for patients and so on. Or my pharmacy app is about patients, or is it about doctors, or is it about other audience group? Okay, now we go next one, as we see, is the mocks. And here with the mocks, we have some here with the mocks. Oh, just one sec, because I'm having a PM here on Slack. All right, so where was I? Sorry, I answered something on Capstone to Slack, so pardon me for this pause. So shouldn't deviate because I forget what I'm saying. Now, yes, we're talking about the mocks. Now, the mocks, there are several tools you can use for mockups. Okay, there are some free, there are some with payments, there are some that are free but with limitations. Here you see that I have I have pasted here on the chat the Fluid UI, which is about more realistics, produce more realistic mockups, and I have also included the Ninja mock, which is more sketchy for creating mocks that are, more like sketches. But trust me, you don't actually need to use one of the available tools or online tools to build your mock. I've seen cases of people who just drew their mockups on a piece of paper, and by doing so, they just took a picture of this mock-up, of this drawing, of this sketch, and it was just fine. There are other people who worked on Photoshop, taking just as I did, combining smaller parts of other applications into a screen and providing a mock-up, and it was fine. So feel free to use an online tool. Feel free to use some to do, use Photoshop and take bits and parts of other applications and combine it into something that looks like a screen. Sketch your own and take a photo. Do whatever you like. So there is no specific guideline about that. Okay, so don't worry about it. Just make a visualization of your app as you have imagined it, so that you give your reviewer an idea of what is in your mind, how the UI would look like to some degree, and know that you don't have to build it exactly as you paint it. You just give an idea of what's in your mind. Okay, now let's continue. Next, we have that the proposal declares these primary features. For example, uh, let's go back into Maya. So the primary features of the application is things like what your app will do. It's like the app. It's the how can I say it now? Uh, the primary features of my app was, for example, that my app will load uh, articles from specific categories. Then, by clicking into one of the articles that are fetched, it will open a detail activity showing the article detail. Then, if you press into the TTS text-to-speech button, it will read aloud the article, and so on. Okay. We also happen to have a TV station and a radio station uh, as an enterprise with the company that was hosting the articles. So my app also contained live streams. So you would say that by clicking the radio button, there we will launch an EXO player that will play the radio live stream, and another that will play the TV live stream, and so on. So the primary features is like a radio stream, live stream, um, articles, fetching, seeing the articles detail, storing the articles for later reading, and so on. So these are the primary features. These are the kind of features that you describe into more extent from the actual description, the initial description. Okay. Um, Proposal outlines any key constraints such as persistence, UX corner cases, and libraries use. App clearly outlines how a database will be implemented. Okay, here this is a more tricky part, and into this part we will get into some detail about. Let's take each part alone. Okay, data persistence. Okay, how will you have data persistence? For example, you will say that I'm going to use, um, let's say, room live data. I'm going to use SQLite and content providers where I will store my articles. The UX corner cases is how your app will progress from one stage to the other. So in the UX corner cases, which you can also find uh, corner cases here, you can say that, for example, clicking an article will take you to the detail activity. Uh, by clicking the back button, your app will go to the main activity. By clicking the TV stream button, the streaming activity will open, and the orientation will change to landscape. By clicking the back from the live stream, The orientation will return back to portrait and into the main activity. So all the edge corner cases in the UX are mostly like descriptions of how the mockups change. I mean, how you go from one mockup to the other. So this is what you have here. When you hit this button, this happens. When you hit the other button, that happens. When you press back, that happens. Okay, so it's how you progress from one mockup to the other. Okay, then you have the libraries that you share. Notice that all these three here that we have, the persistence, the corner cases, and the libraries, all these three refer into this very line. Okay, it's for the same rubric requirement. So all these three will help you pass this line of the rubric. So what libraries? Now, when we said that we will use stable versions of libraries, we don't mean that we need to state which version of libraries. As I showed you earlier on the statement, you just need to state that you will be using a stable version of libraries, but you don't need to say that we'll be using, for example, Picasso 252. You don't need to do that. You just need to say that I will not be using an alpha or beta version of Picasso or from the Canary channel. I will use stable versions. Okay. So when we say here about libraries, you just need to say which libraries you will be using. For example, I wasn't sure when I was building my application if I would use Glide or Picasso. So I said that Picasso or Glide will be used to display images. So I was playing safe here. No reviewer will tell you that you said that you will use Picasso, but you used Glide. So I said I will use Glide or Picasso. And actually, I was smart enough to say Glide and or Picasso. So I was leaving a window here. You will have to think, if you download things from the web, then you might be using the OK HTTP library, and you can also be using the retrofit 2 library. Are you going to have a recycler view? You will also use that. Okay. So when we say libraries, we mean all those lines that we include into our app build Gradle. Okay, the lines that we will add there, and that's pretty much it. Think about what you will do. Think about what you will need to do that. Will your project have gauges like a speedometer? Go into Android Arsenal. Android Arsenal is a very good source of libraries, and see what you would possibly use. So put all the libraries that you think of there. But even if you don't use all those libraries, don't go crazy. You will not fail your Capstone 1 or Capstone 2 project for indicating that you will use a library that you didn't use at the end. Okay? Just don't overdo it. Okay? Make your homework. Try to be as concise as possible. Okay? Now, the proposal describes a plan to implement the main features of the app via a well-structured technical tasks. I will get into the tasks in 1 minute, which is here. But before I do, I want to cover this thing here, okay? So that we stay on concurrent with the template. This line here is all about the coming, is all about the Google Play services, which we will see on which need to be satisfied by this line on the Capstone 2. Okay, so maybe I will not see just now. I will jump it when we get there. Okay. Now, from the Capstone stage 2, you will see that you need to implement at least 2 uh, Google Play services. So we will get there into a minute, which is this line. All right. Now, your technical tasks, which is here. Here, you will need to write the tasks that you will have into your project. Okay. And those tasks are actually like what steps you would take to get from an empty application into a complete project. So, like, firstly, I will implement the UI. Secondly, I will implement the adapter, so I start downloading the content and show it. Then I will implement. Third task would be to implement the persistence, data persistence. Fourth task would be to create, let's say, the widget. Now, these are the tasks you need to have. Okay. Now that we have finished from that, and I've said everything about the rubric, we need to jump into the Capstone 2 rubric to take a look there. Before we do so, we need to show here that for this part, which is the Google Play services, you will just need to have in mind that you can count the Firebase services. They count as Google Play services. So if you need to implement at least 2 services. If you have Firebase services, they can count as your 2 services required for the part 2. And also something that you might missed here is the widget. Okay, that is here in doesn't clearly state that the widget is required. But if you go into the rubric of Capstone 2, you will see that the widget is required. Here, the way you read it might look as an optional step, but it's something you need to have to put in your mockups, and it will need to be there because you will have it definitely in your implementation. So as you see here, for example, let me show you something about the widget and about the mocks that I said earlier. Here I did something very, let's say, you cannot consider it a cheat, because actually I had here a statement about that, which said that actually this mockup is the Photoshop result of the original widget of CNN news application. And what I just did, I removed the CNN here and I put Neacritic, which was the name of my app. Okay, so I took a screenshot of the CNN news app and changed the logo, and I said my app will look like this. And well, it turned that I did something similar. because my actual Capstone project, which is that here, it turns that this was my final result of my widget. So I felt free to just, let's say, cheat here and take a screenshot of CNN's widget, change the logo here, but uh, say here that it's a Photoshop result of the original CSS News app for the widget. And then when I implemented it, I ended up with this as my widget. So uh, don't be afraid to do things that are creative, even if you take something from another place, but write down that I took this from there and I intend to do it like the same way like him. Okay, so this is this concludes the Capstone 1 rubric. But as we said, and we should never forget, uh, in order to complete the Capstone 1 rubric, we need to jump into the Capstone 2 rubric and make sure that whatever is written there, uh, we take that into account for creating our Capstone 1. Now, I will just say that I will make a pause now because I want to go through the Capstone 2 rubric when in exactly 1 hour from now, when the Capstone 2 study jam starts. So in exactly 1 hour from now, at 1 o'clock Central European time, we will continue with the Capstone 2 rubric, which is useful for you guys doing Capstone 1, and which refers directly also to the people who are doing Capstone 2. So I want to apologize for this 1 hour pause. For the remaining 1 hour, I will stay online on Slack to answer any questions. And then in 1 hour, we continue with Capstone 2 rubric on the study jam of the P7, Project 7. Okay. Is there anything you want to ask here at YouTube before I close? Okay, I see that I have no questions so far. I will continue for the next 1 hour on Slack. So thank you very much, everybody. And I will see you again back in 1 hour for the next live stream, which is Capstone 2 Rubic and Strategies. Thank you all so much.